Chapter 4, Combustion and Flame. What is combustion? A chemical process in which a substance reacts with oxygen to give off heat is called combustion. The combustion, sorry, the substance that undergoes combustion is said to be combustible. It is also called a fuel. Ignition temperature. The lowest temperature at which a substance catches fire is called its ignition temperature. What is inflammable substances? The substances which have very low ignition temperature and can easily catch fire with a flame are called inflammable substances. Example of inflammable substances are petrol, alcohol, liquefied petroleum gas, etc. Type of combustion. There are two types of combustion. First, rapid combustion. Second, spontaneous combustion. We find that the gas burns rapidly and produces heat and light. Such combustion is known as rapid combustion. There are substances like phosphorus which burn in air at room temperature. Phosphorus is a rapid combustion. The type of combustion in which a material suddenly bursts into flames without the application of any apparent cause is called spontaneous combustion. Explosion. A large amount of gas formed in the reaction is liberated. Such a reaction is called explosion. Explosion can also take place if pressure is applied on the cracker. What is a fuel? Recall that the sources of heat energy for domestic and industrial purposes are mainly wood, charcoal, petrol, kerosene, etc. These substances are called fuel. A good fuel is one which is rapidly available. It is cheap. It burns easily in air at a moderate rate. Idle fuel. There is a probably no fuel that could be considered as an idle fuel. Fuel efficiency. Suppose you were asked to boil a given quantity of water using cow dung, coal, and LPG as fuel. Which fuel would you prefer? Give your reason. You may take the help of your parents. Do these three fuels produce the same amount of heat? The amount of heat energy produces on complete combustion of 1 kg of a fuel is called its calorific value. The calorific value of a fuel is expressed in a unit, and that is kilojoule per kg, kilogram. The calorific value of cow dung cake is 6,000 to 8,000 kg per kg, kilojoule per kilogram. The calorific value of hydrogen is 1 lakh 50,000. Deforestation. Moreover, cutting of trees leads to deforestation, which is quite harmful to the environment. Global warming. Consumption of most fuels releases carbon dioxide in the environment. Increased concentration of carbon dioxide in the air is believed to cause global warming. Global warming is the rise to temperature of the atmosphere of the earth. This result among other things in the melting of polar glaciers, which leads to a rise in the sea level, causing floods in the coastal areas. Low-lying coastal areas may even be permanently submerged under water. Acid rain. What is acid rain? Burning of coal and diesel release sulfur dioxide gas. It is an extremely suffocated, suffocating and corrosive gas. Moreover, petrol engines give off gaseous oxides of nitrogen. Oxides of sulfur and nitrogen dissolve in rainwater and form acid. Such rain is called acid rain. It is very harmful for crops, buildings, and soils. The use of diesel and petrol as fuel in automobiles is being replaced by CNG, compressed natural gas, because CNG produces the harmful products in very small amounts. CNG is a cleaner fuel. Chapter 5, Conservation of Plants and Animals. Deforestation and its causes. A great variety of plants and animals exist on Earth. They are essential for the well being and survival of mankind. Today's a major threat to survival of these organisms is deforestation. We know that deforestation means clearing of forest and using that land for other purposes. Trees in the forest are cut for some of the purposes mentioned below: procuring land for cultivation, second, building houses and factories, third, making furniture or using wood as fuel. Consequences of deforestation. Moreover, there will be increased changes of natural calamities such as floods and droughts. Recall the plants need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. Favored trees would mean that less carbon dioxide will be used up, resulting in its increased amount in the atmosphere. This will lead to global warming as carbon dioxide traps the heat rays reflected by the earth. The increase in temperature on the earth disturbs the water cycle and may reduce rainfall. This could cause droughts. Desertification. The soil has less humus and is less fertile. Gradually, the fertile land gets converted into desert. It is called desertification. Conservation of forest and wildlife. Biosphere. Biosphere is that part of the earth in which living organisms exist or which supports life. Biological diversity or biodiversity refers to the variety of organisms existing on the earth, their interrelationships, and their relationship with the environment. to protect our flora and fauna and their habitats. Protected areas called wildlife sanctuaries. National parks and biosphere reserves have been earmarked plantation, cultivation, grazing, felling trees, hunting and poaching are prohibited there. Wildlife sanctuary areas where animals are protected from any disturbance to them and their habitat. National park areas reserved for wildlife where they can freely use the habitats and natural resources. Biosphere reserve large areas of protected land for conservation of wildlife, plant and animal resources and traditional life of the tribal living in the area. Biosphere reserves Biosphere reserves are the areas meant for conservation of biodiversity. As you are aware that biodiversity is the variety of plants, animals and microorganisms generally found in an area. Flora and fauna. The plants and animals. Plants for flora and animals. Fauna is for animals. The plants and animals found in a particular area are termed flora and fauna respectively of that area. Epidemic species. Endemic species. Endemic species are those species of plants and animals which are found inclusively in a particular area. They are not naturally found anywhere else. A particular type of animal or plant may be endemic to a zone, a state, or a country. Wildlife sanctuaries. Wildlife sanctuaries like reserve forests provide protection and suitable living conditions to wild animals. He also tells them, sorry, like people living in the wildlife sanctuaries are allowed to do certain activities such as grazing by their livestock, collecting medicinal plants, firewood, etc. Some of the threatened wild animals like black buck, white-eyed buck, elephant, golden cat, pink-headed duck, gharial, masked crocodile, python, rhinoceros, etc. are protected and preserved in our wildlife sanctuaries. Indian sanctuaries have unique landscapes, broad level forests, mountain forest and lush lands in deltas of big rivers. Endangered animals. Animals whose numbers are diminishing to a level that they might face extinction are known as the endangered animal. Ecosystem. An ecosystem is made of all the plants, animals and microorganisms in an area along with non-living components such as climate, soil, river deltas, etc. Red data book. Red data book is the source book which keeps a record of all the endangered animal and plants. Red data book is maintained internationally by an organization. India also maintains red data book for plant and animals found in India. Wildlife sanctuaries, national park, and biosphere reserves are names given to the areas meant for conservation and preservation of forest and wild animals. Biodiversity refers to the variety of living organisms in a specific area. Plant and animals of a particular area are known as the flora and fauna of that area. Endemic species are found only in a particular area. Endangered species are those which are facing the danger of extinction. Red Data Book contains a record of endangered species. Migration is the phenomenon of movement of a species from its own habitat to some other habitat for a particular time period every year for a specific purpose like breeding. We should save, reuse, and recycle paper to save trees, energy, and water. Reforestation is the restocking of destroyed forest by planting new trees. Chapter 6, Reproduction in Animals. There are two types of reproduction. First, sexual reproduction, second, asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction. This type of reproduction beginning from the fusion of male and female gametes is called sexual reproduction. Male reproductive organs in human. You will, you can see here. First, see sperm duct. Second, penis. Third, testes. Male reproductive organ in human. There are three organs in male for reproduction. First, testes, penis, and sperm duct. Male reproductive organs. The male reproductive organs include a pair of testes, singular testes, two sperm ducts, and a penis. The testes produce the male gametes called sperms. Millions of sperms are produced by the testes. You are seeing here human sperm. This is a sperm. Head, middle piece, tail. Sperm is a single cell with all the usual cell components. Female reproductive organs. Female reproductive organs in humans. Ovary, oviduct and uterus. The female reproductive organs are pair of ovaries, oviducts and the uterus. The ovary produces female gametes called ova or eggs. In human begins a single matured egg is released into the oviduct by one of the ovaries every month. Uterus is the part where development of the baby take places. Like the sperm and egg is also a single cell. Fertilization. The first step in the process of reproduction is the fusion of a sperm and an ovum. When sperms come in contact with an egg, one of the sperms may fuse with the egg. Such fusion of the egg and the sperm is called fertilization. Zygote. During fertilization, the nuclei of the sperm and the egg fuse to form a single nucleus. This results in the formation of a fertilized egg or zygote. The process of fertilization is the meeting of an egg cell from the mother and a sperm cell from the father. So the new individual inherits some characteristics from the mother and some from the father. Fertilization, which takes place inside the female body, is called internal fertilization. Internal fertilization occurs in many animals, including humans, cows, dogs, and hens. Test tube baby. Test tube baby. That in some women, oviduct are blocked. These women are unable to bear babies because sperms cannot reach the egg for fertilization. In such cases, doctors collect freshly released egg and sperms and keep them together for a few hours. For IVF, in vitro fertilization, fertilization outside the body. In case fertilization occurs, the zygote is allowed to develop for about a week and then it is placed in the mother's uterus. Complete development takes place in the uterus and the baby is born like any other baby. Babies born through this technique are called test tube babies. This term is actually misleading because babies cannot grow in test tubes. External fertilization. This type of fertilization, in which the fusion of a male and a female gamete takes place outside the body of the female, is called external fertilization. It is very common in the aquatic animals such as fish, starfish, frog, etc. What is fetus? The stage of embryo in which all the body parts can be identified is called a fetus. The viviparous and oviparous animals. The animals which give birth to young ones are called viviparous animals. Those animals which lay eggs are called oviparous animals. Metamorphosis. What is metamorphosis? The transformation of the larva into an adult through drastic changes is called metamorphosis. Buds. What is buds? In each hydra, there may be one or more bulges. These bulges are developing new individuals and they are called buds. Asexual reproduction. This type of reproduction in which only a single parent is involved is called asexual reproduction. New individuals develop from the buds in hydra. This type of asexual reproduction is called budding. Binary fission. An animal reproduces by dividing into two individuals is called binary fission. There are two modes by which animals reproduce. These are sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Reproduction resulting from the fusion of male and female gametes is called sexual reproduction. The reproductive organs in the female include ovaries, oviducts, and uterus. The reproductive organs in male include testes, sperms, ducts, and penis. The ovary produces female gametes called ova, and the testes produce male gametes called sperms. The fusion of ovum and sperm is called fertilization. The fertilized egg is called a zygote. Fertilization that takes place inside the female body is called internal fertilization. This called observed in human beings and other animals such as hens, cows, and dogs. Fertilization that takes place outside the female body is called external fertilization. This is observed in frogs, fish, starfish, etc. The zygote divides repeatedly to give rise to an embryo. The embryo gets embedded in the wall of the uterus for further development. The stage of the embryo in which all the body parts are identifiable is called fetus. Animals such as human beings, cows, and dogs are gives birth to young ones are called viviparous animals. Animals such as hen, frog, lizard, and butterfly which lay eggs are called oviparous animals. The transformation of the larva into adult through drastic changes is called metamorphosis. The type of reproduction in which only a single parent is involved is called asexual reproduction. In Hydra, new individuals develop from births. This method of asexual reproduction is called budding. Amoeba produces by dividing itself into two. This type of asexual reproduction is called binary fusion. Chapter 7, Reaching the Age of Adolescence. What is adolescence? Growing up a natural process, the period of life when the body undergoes changes leading to reproductive maturity is called adolescence. Adolescence begins around the age of 11 and lasts up to 18 or 19 years of age. Since this period covers the teens, 13 to 18 or 19 years of age, adolescents are also called teenagers. What is puberty? The human body undergoes several changes during adolescence. These changes mark the onset of puberty. Calculation for full height in centimeter. Present height in centimeter upon percent of full height at this age as given in the chart. Multiply 100. You can see here height chart. Changing in body shape. In boys, the muscles of the body grow more prominently than in the girls. Thus, changes occurring in adolescence, boys and girls are different. By change at puberty, the voice box of the larynx begins to grow. Boys develop larger voice boxes. The growing voice box in boys can be seen as a protru- protruding part of the throat called Adam's apple. In girls, the larynx is hardly visible from the outside because of it. A small size, generally girls have a high pitches voice, whereas boys have a deep voice. Increased activity of sweet and sebaceous glands. During puberty, the secretion of sweet glands and sebaceous gland, IL glands, increases. Many young people get acne and pimples on the face at this time because of the increased activity of the glands in the skin. Development of six organs at puberty. Male six organ like the testes and penis develop completely. The testes also begin to produce sperms. In girls, the ovaries enlarge and eggs begin to mature. Also, ovaries start releasing mature eggs. Reaching mental, intellectual, and emotional maturity. Adolescence is also a period of change in a person's way of thinking. Adolescents are more independent than before and are also self conscious. Intellectual development takes place and they tend to spend considerable time thinking. In fact, it is often the time in one's life when the brain has the greatest capacity for learning. Sometimes, however, an adolescent may feel insecure while trying to adjust to the change in the body and mind. But as adolescent learners, you should know that there is no reason to feel insecure. These changes are a natural part of growing up. Secondary sexual characters. Testes and ovaries are the reproductive organs. They produce the gametes, that is sperm and ova. In girls, breasts begins to develop at puberty and boys begin to grow facial hair, that is mustaches and beard. As these features help to discuss the male from the female, they are called secondary sexual characters. Boys also develop hair on their chest. In both boys and girls, hair grows under the arms and in region above the thighs or the pubic region. The changes which occur at adolescence are controlled by hormones. Hormones are chemical substances. These are secretions from endocrine glands. Endocrine system, the male hormone or testosterone begins to are released by the testes at the onset of puberty. This causes changes in boys about which you have just learned. For example, the growth of facial hair once puberty is reached in girls, ovaries begins to produce the female hormone or estrogen, which makes the breasts develop. Milk secreting glands or mammary glands develop inside the breasts. The production of these hormones is under the control of another hormone secreted from an endocrine gland called pituitary gland. Role of hormones in initiating reproductive function. Endocrine glands release hormones into the bloodstream to reach a particular body part called target site. What is target site? Endocrine glands release hormones into the bloodstream to reach a particular body part. The target site responds to the hormones. There are many endocrine glands or ductless gland in the body. The testes and ovaries secrete sex hormones. You have just learned that these hormones are responsible for the male and female secondary sexual characters. Further, the sex hormones are under the control of hormones for the pituitary gland. The pituitary secretes many hormones on off which makes ova mature in the ovaries and sperms from the testes. Hormones from pituitary stimulate testes and ovaries to release testosterone in male and estrogen in female, released in the blood stream and reach parts of the body target site, stimulate changes in the body at onset of puberty. Reproductive phase of life in humans. Adolescents become capable of reproduction when their testes and ovaries begins to produce gametes. The capacity for maturation and production of gametes lasts for a much longer time in males than in females. In females, the reproductive phase of life begins at puberty, 10 to 12 years of age, and generally lasts till the age of approximately 45 to 50 years. The ova begin to mature with the onset of puberty. One ovum matures and is released by one of the ovaries once in about 28 to 30 days. During this period, the wall of the uterus becomes thick so as to receive the egg in case it is fertilized and begins to develop. This results in pregnancy if fertilization does not occur. The released egg and the thickened lining of the uterus along with its blood vessels are shed off. This causes bleeding in women, which is called menstruation. Menstruation occurs once in about 28 to 30 days. The first menstrual flow begins at puberty and is termed menarche. At 45 to 50 years of age, the menstrual cycle stops. Stoppage of menstruation is termed menopause. Initially, menstrual cycle may be irregular. It takes some time become regular. Menstrual cycle is controlled by hormones. The cycle includes the maturation of the egg, its release, thickening of uterine wall, and its breakdown if pregnancy does not occur. In case the egg is fertilized, it begins to divide and then gets embedded in the uterus for further development. As you see, how is the sex of the baby determined? Boy or girl? How we can decide the baby is boy or girl? Inside the fertilized egg or zygote is the instruction for determining the sex of the baby. This instruction is present in the thread like structures called chromosomes. In the fertilized egg, chromosomes are present inside the nucleus of every cell. All human beings have 23 pairs of chromosomes in the nuclei of their cells. Two chromosomes out of these are the sex chromosomes named X and Y. A female has two X chromosomes while a male has one X and one Y chromosome. The gametes, egg, and sperm have only one set of chromosomes. The unfertilized egg always has one X chromosome, but sperms are of two kinds. One kind has an X chromosome and the other kind has Y chromosome. When a sperm containing X chromosome fertilizes the egg, the zygote would have two X chromosomes and develop into a female child. If the sperm contributes a Y chromosome to the egg ovum at fertilization, the zygote would develop into a male child. Now you know that the six chromosomes of the father determine the sex of an unborn baby. The belief that the mother is responsible for the sex of her baby is completely wrong, and to blame her for this is totally unjustified. And ovaries to produce their hormones. You have already learned that the pituitary gland is an endocrine gland. It is attached to the brain. Apart from the pituitary, the testes, and the ovaries, there are other endocrine glands in the body such as thyroid, pancreas, and adrenals. A disease of thyroid gland is goiter. Thyroid gland was not producing the hormone thyroxine. Their aunt also told them that their uncle was suffering from the diabetes because his pancreas was not producing the hormone insulin in sufficient quantities. The adrenal glands, which are also shown in the chart hung on the wall of her clinic, the aunt told them that reaching the age of adolescence. Chapter 7. What is adolescence? Growing up is a natural process, the period of life when the body undergoes changes, leading to reproductive maturity is called adolescence. What is puberty? The human body undergoes several changes during adolescence. These changes mark the onset of puberty. Change in body shape. In boys, the muscles of the body grow more prominently than in the girl. Thus, changes occurring in adolescent boys and girls are different. Wise changes. The wise changes. At puberty, the wise box of the larynx begins to grow. Boys develop larger wise boxes. The growing wise box in boys can be seen as a protruding part of the throat, called Adam's apple. In girls, the larynx is hardly visible from the outside because of its small size. Generally, girls have a high pitched voice, whereas boys have a deep voice. In adolescent boys, sometimes the muscles of the growing voice box go out of control and the voice becomes hoarse. This state may remain for a few days or weeks, after which the voice becomes normal. Increased activity of sweet and sebaceous gland. During puberty, the secretion of sweet glands and sebaceous glands, oil glands, increases. Many young people get acne or pimple on the face at this time because of the increased activity of these glands in the skin. Development of sex organs. At puberty, male sex organs like the testes and penis develop completely. The testes also begins to produce sperms. In girls, the ovaries enlarge and eggs begins to mature. Also, ovaries starts releasing mature eggs. Reaching mental, intellectual, and emotional maturity. Adolescence is also a period of change in a person's way of thinking. Adolescents are more independent than before and are also conscious. Intellectual development takes place and they tend to spend considerable time thinking. In fact, it is often the time in one's life when the brain has the greatest capacity for learning. Sometimes, however, an adolescent may feel insecure while trying to adjust to the changes in the body and mind, but as adolescent learners, You should know that there is no reason to feel insecure. These changes are a natural part of growing up. Secondary sexual characters. Testes and ovaries are the reproductive organs. They produce the gametes, that is sperms and ova. In girls, breasts begin to develop at puberty, and boys begins to grow facial hair, that is mustaches and beard. As these features help to discuss the male from the female, they are called secondary sexual characters. Boys also develop hair on their chest. In both boys and girls, hair grows under the arms in the region above the thighs or the pubic region. The changes which occur at adolescence are controlled by hormones. Hormones are chemical substances. These are secretions from endocrine glands or endocrine system. The male hormone or testosterone begins to be released by the testes at the onset of puberty. This causes changes in boys about which you have just learned. For example, the growth of facial hair once puberty is reached. In girls, ovaries begins to produce the female hormone or estrogen, which makes the breasts develop. Milk secreting glands or mammary glands develop inside the breasts. The production of these hormones is under the control of another hormone secreted from an endocrine gland, is pituitary gland. Role of hormones in initiating productive function. Endocrine gland Endocrine glands release hormones into the bloodstream to reach a particular body part called target site. The target site responds to the hormone. There are many endocrine glands or ductless glands in the body. The testes and ovaries secrete sex hormones. You have just learned that these hormones are responsible for the male and female secondary sexual characters. Further, the sex hormones are under the control of hormones from the pituitary gland. The pituitary secretes many hormones, one of which makes ova mature in the where ovaries and sperms form in the testes. Hormones from pituitary stimulate testes and ovaries to release testosterone in male and estrogen in female. Releases released in the blood stream and reach part of the body target site. Stimulate changes in the body at onset of puberty. The onset of puberty is controlled by hormones. Reproductive phase of life in humans. Adolescents become capable of reproduction when their testes and ovaries begin to produce gametes. The capacity for maturation and production of gametes lasts for a much longer time in males than in female. In females, the productive phase of life begins at puberty 10 to 12 years of age and generally lasts till the age of approximately 45 to 50 years. The ova begins to mature with the onset of puberty. On one ova matures and is released by one of the ovaries once in about 28 to 30 days. During this period, the wall of the uterus becomes thick so as to receive the egg in case it is fertilized and begins to develop. This results in pregnancy if fertilization does not occur. The released egg and the thickened lining of the uterus, along with its blood vessels, are shed off. This causes bleeding in women, which is called menstruation. Menstruation occurs one in about 28 to 30 days. The first menstruation flow begins at puberty and is termed menarche. At 45 to 50 years of age, the menstruation cycle stops. Stoppage of menstruation is termed menopause. Initially, menstrual cycle may be irregular. It takes some time to become regular. Menstrual cycle is controlled by hormones. The cycle includes the maturation of the egg, its release, thickening of uterine wall and its breakdown. If pregnancy does not occur, in case the egg is fertilized, it begins to divide and then gets embedded in the uterus for further development, as you have learned in chapter 6. How is the sex of the baby determined? Boy or girl inside the fertilized egg or zygote is the instruction for determining the sex of the baby. This instruction is present in the thread-like structures called chromosomes. In the fertilized egg, chromosomes are present inside the nucleus of every cell. All human beings have 23 pairs of chromosomes in the nuclei of their cells. Two chromosomes out of these are the sex chromosomes named X and Y. A female has two X chromosomes while a male has one X and one Y chromosome. The gametes, egg, and sperm have only one set of chromosomes. The unfertilized egg always has one X chromosome, but sperms are of two kinds. One kind has X chromosome and other kinds of Y chromosome. When a sperm containing X chromosome fertilizes the egg, the zygote would have two X chromosomes and develop into a female child. If the sperm contributes a Y chromosome to the egg ovum at fertilization, the zygote would be developed into a male child. Now you know that the sex chromosomes of the father determine the sex of an unborn baby. The belief that the mother is responsible for the sex of her baby is completely wrong. Now you know that the sex chromosomes of the father determine the sex of an unborn baby. The belief that the mother is responsible for the sex of her baby is completely wrong, and to blame her for this is totally unjustified. Hormones other than sex hormones. The hormones secreted by the pituitary stimulated testes and ovaries to produce their hormones. You have already learned that the pituitary gland is an endocrine gland. It is attached to the brain. Apart from the pituitary, the testes, and the ovaries, there are other endocrine glands in the body such as thyroid, pancreas, and adrenal. Gitter is a disease of the thyroid gland. Thyroid gland was not producing the hormone thyroxine. Diabetes. When pancreas was not producing the hormone insulin in sufficient quantities, then there is a there is born a disease that names is diabetes. Adrenals also produce the hormone adrenaline. It helps the body to adjust to stress when one is very angry, impressed, or worried. Thyroid and adrenal secretes their hormones when they receive orders from the pituitary through its hormones. Pituitary also secretes growth hormone, which is necessary for the normal growth of a person. Role of hormones in completing the life history of insect and frogs. The tadpole passes through certain stages to become a frog. This changes from larva to adult is called metamorphosis. Metamorphosis in insect is controlled by insect hormones. In a frog, it is controlled by thyroxine, the hormone produced by thyroid. Thyroxine production requires the presence of iodine in water. If the water in which the tadpoles are growing does not contain sufficient iodine, the tadpoles cannot become adult. Reproductive health. The physical and mental well being of an individual is regarded as an individual's health. To keep the body healthy, every human being at any age needs to have a balanced diet. The person must also observe personal hygiene and undertake adequate physical exercise. During adolescence, however, these becomes even more essential as the body is growing. Nutritional needs of the adolescents. Adolescence is a stage of rapid growth and development, hence, the diet for an adolescent has to be carefully planned. You have already learned what a balanced diet is. Recall that a balanced diet means that the meals include protein, carbohydrate, fats, and vitamins in requisite proportion. Our Indian meal is of roti, rice, dal, pulses, and vegetables is a balanced meal. Milk is a balanced food in itself. Fruits also provide nourishment. For infants, mother milk provides all the nourishment that they need. Iron builds blood and iron-rich food such as leafy vegetables, jaggery, meat, citrus, Indian gooseberry, amla are good for adolescents. Chick Personal hygiene. Everyone should have a bath at least once every day. It is more necessary for teenagers because the increased activity of sweat glands sometimes make the body smelly. All parts of the body should be washed and cleaned every day. If cleanliness is not maintained, there are chances of catching bacterial infections. Girls should take special care of cleanliness during the time of menstrual flow. They should keep track of their menstrual cycle and be prepared for the onset of menstruation. Use sanitary napkin or clean homemade pads. Change pads after every 4 or 5 hours as per requirement. Physical exercise, walking and playing in fresh air keeps the body fit and healthy. All young boys and girls should take walks, exercise, and play outdoor games. Myths, taboos, do's and don'ts. Say no to drugs. Adolescence is a period of much activity in the body and mind, which is normal part of growing up. So do not feel confused or insecure. Anybody suggests that you will get relief if you take some drugs, just say no unless prescribed by the doctor. Drugs are addictive. If you take them once, you feel like taking them again and again. They harm the body in the long run. They ruin health and happiness. You must have heard about AIDS, which is caused by dangerous virus HIV. This virus can pass on to a normal person from an infected person by sharing the syringes used for injecting drugs. It can also be transmitted to an infant from the infected mother through her milk. The virus can also be transmitted through sexual contact with a person infected with HIV. Adolescent pregnancy. You might be knowing that in our country the legal age of marriage is 18 years for girls and 21 for boys. This is because teenage mothers are not prepared mentally or physically for motherhood. Early marriage and motherhood cause health problems in the mother and the child. It also curtails employment opportunities for the young women and may cause mental agony as she is not ready for responsibilities for of motherhood. What you have learned, humans become capable of reproduction after puberty sets in. Children between the ages of 11 and 19 years are called adolescents. The onset of puberty brings about growth of the reproductive organs. Hair grow at various places on the body. Breasts develop in girls and facial hair, mustache and beard appear in boys. Voice of boys becomes harsh as voice box enlarges during adolescence. Children gain height during adolescence. The onset of puberty and maturity of reproductive parts are controlled by hormones. Hormones are secretions of endocrine glands which pour them directly into the bloodstream. Pituitary gland secretes hormones on which include growth hormone and hormones that make other glands such as the testes, ovaries, thyroids and adrenals secretes hormones. Pancreas secretes insulin, thyroid produces thyroxine and adrenals produces adrenaline. Testosterone is the male hormone and estrogen is the female hormone. The uterine wall in females prepares itself to receive the developing fertilized egg. In case there is no fertilization, the thickened lining of the uterine wall breaks down and goes out of the body along with blood. This is called menstruation. Sex of the unborn child depends on whether the zygote has XX or XY chromosomes. It is important to eat balanced food and maintain personal hygiene during adolescence. Force and pressure. Force, a push or a pull. A push or a pull on an object is called a force. Forces applied on an object in the same direction add to one another. If the two forces act in the opposite directions on an object, the net force acting on it is the difference between the two forces. A change in either the speed of an object or its direction of motion, or both, is described as a change in its state of motion. Thus, a force may bring a change in the state of motion of an object. State of motion. The state of motion of an object is described by its speed and the direction of motion. The state of rest is considered to be the state of zero speed. An object may be at rest or in motion. Both are its states of motion. Application of force on an object may change its shape. The force resulting due to the action of muscles is known as the muscular force. Muscular force can be applied only when it is in contact with an object. It is also called a contact force. The force responsible for changing the state of motion of objects in all these examples is the force of friction. It is the force of friction between the surface of the ball and the ground that brings the moving ball to rest. The force exerted by a magnet is an example of non-contacted force. Electrostatic force, the force exerted by a charged body on another charged or uncharged body, is known as electrostatic force. Objects or things fall towards the earth because it pulls them. This force is called the force of gravity or just gravity. This is an attractive force. The force of gravity acts on all objects. The force acting on a unit area of a surface is called pressure. Pressure is equal force upon area on which it acts. At this stage, we consider only those forces which act perpendicular to the surface on which the pressure is to be compounded. At this stage, we consider only those forces which act perpendicular to the surface on which the pressure is to be computed. Gases to exert pressure on the walls of their container. There is air all around us. This envelope of air is known as the atmosphere. The pressure exerted by this air is known as atmospheric pressure. Force could be a push or a pull. A force arises due to the interaction between two objects. Force has magnitude as well as direction. A change in the speed of an object or the direction direction of its motion or both implies a change in its state of motion. Force acting on an object may cause a change in its state of motion or a change in its shape. A force can act on an object with or without being in contact with it. Force per unit area is called pressure. Liquids and gases exert pressure on the wall of their containers. The pressure exerted by air around us is known as atmospheric pressure.